Let's begin. Joanna Hoffman. Joanna Hoffman has been on 4 National Poetry Slam teams. In 2011, she represented Urbana at the Women of the World Poetry Slam, National Poetry Slam, and Individual World Poetry Slam, placing in the top 10 at each. In 2012, she represented Louder Arts at the Women of the World Poetry Slam and placed 4th. When not performing poetry, she works at a nonprofit organization and runs in Prospect Park. Please welcome Joanna.
Woo! Yeah!
Happy Pride Week, everybody. I'm happy to be here. I'm going to do the 3 gayest poems that I have. Here are 3 very gay poems. When I was 13 years old, there was nothing scarier than having no one to sit with at lunch. The entire cafeteria became one silent, unblinking eye, X-raying down to the gentlest trembling of chin. Fear unrolling snakebite down the hallway of my veins. When I tried to sit down, Kara moved her purple bag to the empty seat and stared straight ahead while the other girls laughed. Acid sparks crackling in the backs of their throats. A toast to the flood of relief that it wasn't them this time. When I think back, all I can tell myself is, thank God we didn't have Facebook then. There were no live streams of the first time I kissed someone without having to pretend they were someone else. No posted bulletins about what a loser I was. All these years later, I still cringe to think of what that would have felt like to a middle school me. My thin bones scrubbed to translucent so that any outside opinions bled through and settled there in that hot tangle of prism, as if they always lived there. When it comes, in the form of a text, an email, a Facebook status, the word dyke whispered when you walk by, the friends who turn away when they see you, the moment when you're in the room with the door locked against the family that just doesn't understand you, when you decide that if everybody else thinks something is wrong with you, then there must be, and the hatred suddenly hatches in your own brain, and you even have the capacity for perspective anymore, because the thick black curtain is falling all around you, and it's all you can do to just keep breathing, and even your own pulse is a mouth pressed up to the cold wall of your chest, murmuring, dyke, bitch, ugly. It is then, when you are more salt than water, that you must float. Some part brain chemistry, some part just having the right person there at the right time. Crying in my sister's bed as she told me, in a few years this will all be so far away. And I wish someone had been there for Tyler, for those who weren't so lucky to tell them that all of these faces twisted into hatred are so full of disgust for themselves, and you are so much cooler than all of those douchebags anyway, and there are worse things in life than being hated by them, like being hated by yourself, and in the end it is just you and you, so you would better start working now to be the best you can be to yourself, that nobody else can define what beautiful means to you, and there will be people in your life who couldn't care less if you are gay, if you aren't stick thin, if you don't have a date to the prom, if you are different. And I don't have it in me to write to the bullies. Through the years, they become an endless stream of faces we eventually learn to disregard, but they never stop coming. Let them soak in their own misguided misery. You will be the one moving forward. You will grow in beauty, not into it. The layers of your skin unpeel every year. At the blistering heart of it all, there is hope. Believe me, this will fade to the shadow of a scar that only aches on days like this. When an article in the newspaper brings you back to how you wanted to fade into the linoleum floor of that lunchroom, how even now you want to grab those girls and shake them until the human in them spills onto the ground, and the girl at the purple bag finally looks you in the eye to say, we didn't mean it, I swear.
Yeah.
Hi, Reggie. This next poem is new and was inspired by the recent headline about President Obama's views on same-sex marriage evolving. The first and only time my father attended a meeting for parents and friends of lesbians and gays, he stood up and told the room, I think it's a choice, but it doesn't matter. I love my daughter. The other parents hissed and spat like hot oil, and my father just leaned back in his seat, folded his arms, and closed his eyes. When my mom told me, she said, don't get mad, Joanna. He's evolving. Now I know, it took me 19 years to come out to myself, so I have to understand it might take him this long to really understand this. That when I tell him I'm falling in love and he says, "That's cute, baby," it just means he hasn't yet learned to see love out of its uniform, to realize there is no rebellion inherent in laying the white flags in the sea, in drowning the bone-shattering fight of lying to everyone else and to myself. Evolution is a word for optimists. On Thanksgiving, my dad tells me he doesn't believe in gay marriage, as if it were Loch Ness monster marriage, or unicorn marriage, or God marriage for atheists, anything with an existence up for debate. When I tell him, "Dad, I would just really like to know that you'll be at my wedding one day," I don't mean my gay wedding or my Jewish wedding, though it will be both of these things, I guess, because I am. Like, it will also be a poet wedding, and a brown-eyed wedding, and a right-handed wedding. But evolution means things might get better if you wait long enough, if you learn to bury your head in the sand and wait for hourglasses, to invert the dusty basement floor to bright ceiling. Obama, all of the patient gays are so thrilled that you've evolved. But I'm not a patient anything. I shouldn't have to wait to be told I'm a citizen like everyone else, or for my humanity to finally be acknowledged. And I mean, it's great to have a president that finally supports same-sex marriage, but I'm saving the glitter and the unicorns for the day my father is finally able to say the words "Joanna's wife" without flinching. And maybe it's not fair, Obama, that I resent your hesitation, but I forgive his. Maybe it's because I recognize that your evolution is a privilege, a convenient epiphany, a truth you've known all along but were too scared to admit to until now. Evolution is only measurable when someone moves from one place to another, when the man I spent 8 years of my life hiding myself from walks across the living room floor to hug my girlfriend, to say, "Welcome to the family," before I can even say, "This is my dad." I have 4 minutes left, then I'm going to do a quick one-minute poem before I do this last piece. This is a poem I was maybe going to do a duet with Reggie with, but he's not feeling it, so I'm going to do it by myself. Not to, like, you know, call you out and make you feel bad. Emoticon English Dictionary. Smile face. I like you. I like bread. I'm drunk. I just swallowed a goldfish. Frown face. I'm sad. My goldfish died. She still hasn't called. I am so hungover I just walked into the subway and watched 3 trains go by. Wink face. I want to make out with you. I want to borrow money from you. I'm a motherfucking pirate. I just ate a hot wing and it splattered into my eye. Diagonal face. I just swallowed a staircase. I'm unsure of things. There is Nelly Muzak playing in this elevator. No emoticon. I have no personality. I mean what I say. I'm Amish. I don't care if you're a star for 2-dimensional depictions of emotions. If anything I've said here is unclear, then maybe you should fucking call me. Particularly gay, but you know, I think it's universal.
Kinda.
A little bit gay. Gay text messages. The summer I turned 14, my grandmother got me smashed at a wedding in Jersey. Somewhere in between the 3rd glass of champagne and the 4th ABBA song, she turned to me and said, "Joanna, someday you're gonna have a wedding just like this, and when you do, please, don't let them play any disco." I didn't know how to tell her that I probably wouldn't be having any wedding at all, that I wore these bones like a voiceover when really I was in love with my friend Kathleen. I thought just maybe, if I held this itch underwater long enough, it would float up blue. Tried to claw the want for my voice every time Kathleen asked what I thought of her boyfriend, tearing all the power cords from my drive and imagination and burning every lamp in my throat watching her. I learned what shame feels like. I painted my skin with postcard gleam, as if the best I could ever hope for is to reflect somebody else's shine, as if there were some parts of me better off drowned in a swimming pool of whiteout. But it is not in our nature to cringe before the mirror like this. A person born blind will tilt their head back and extend their arms when they feel pride. It's in our bones, not to bake shame into our blood, but to live boldly. And so now, all these years later, here is my pride. For refusing to allow the wet blanket stare of strangers on the subway smother this burn to hold her hand. For every time someone has said, wow, you don't look gay, and I didn't say thank you. For not allowing my heart to be strip searched by those who want to know if my love is pure enough. Because I've already spent years committing hate crimes against myself, and I already know all of those tricks. So when my friend asks me why there are no straight pride parades, I tell her, you can't be proud of something you've never had to fight for. This is for every wedding I've watched from the sidelines, every fairy tale with stipulations, every it's a choice, it's a phase, you're disgusting, every gay kid who believed nothing would ever make this better because home meant break the parts of yourself that don't fit into the plaster of who you're supposed to be. Well, we already are exactly who we are supposed to be. And just this summer, I woke up living in a city where I could actually get married one day. And I think back to that wedding in Jersey, how I was the last one to leave the dance floor, makeup smeared and beaming, how my grandmother grabbed my hand as I walked by and said, hey, I'm proud of you, with no buts or if-onlys clinging to the underside of her voice, and how finally, all these years later, I'm now able to say the same thing to myself.
Woo!